Okay, picture this. You're at the volleyball court. Parents are super invested, watching every move, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Energy's high.
And the coaches are there on the sideline trying to guide the team. Everyone's passionate, which is great.
For sure. But that passion, sometimes it gets complicated.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, that whole parent-coach dynamic in youth volleyball.
Yeah, how to make it work,
Mm.
make it a real partnership. Because, like, if you're involved in youth sports at all, you know it's all about the kids.
Absolutely. Creating that positive space for them to, well, thrive.
Hmm.
So maybe you're a parent navigating this for the first time, or a coach trying to build better bridges, or even just curious about youth sports.
Yeah, this should give you some, hopefully, really practical stuff to think about.
We've looked at guidelines from places like TJNC, that's the Junior Nationals, and ERVA, one of the regional bodies.
And also coaching ideas from people like Dr. Darren Cannell, plus, general stuff on athlete development.
Right. So it's a pretty broad look at how to make that parent-coach thing work for the player, not against them.
And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to pull out the key strategies, practical tips.
Like how to actually communicate better.
Yeah, exactly. How to communicate, how to set expectations so everyone's on the same page, and how to handle issues constructively when they pop up.
All focused on the player's development and honestly just their enjoyment of playing volleyball.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's start with roles. Dr. Cannell puts it, well, pretty bluntly. Parents are parents, coaches are parents. Coaches do not confuse them.
Haha, yeah, sounds simple, right?
Yeah,
But in reality, it can get fuzzy.
totally. So what does that actually mean? Like day to day?
Well, for parents, the sources really emphasize that supportive role. It's the foundation.
Like making sure they eat right, get enough sleep, that kind of thing.
Yeah, lifestyle stuff, diet, fitness, rest, but also fostering the right mindset.
Mindset, like character building.
Exactly. Character, keeping it fun, teaching respect, understanding that you have to earn things. And crucially, Dr. Cannell warns parents, don't coach from the stands.
Ooh, that's a big one. It's tempting, though, especially if you know the game.
Oh, absolutely. You might see something, want to yell out a tip,
Oh, yeah.
but it can really confuse the player. They're already getting instructions from the coach.
Yeah, you end up undermining the coach, maybe without meaning to.
Precisely. Now, for the coaches, their focus is pretty clear. Skills, tactics, team building.
Creating that positive learning space we mentioned.
And it's worth knowing, organizations like USAV or the Canadian Elite Academy, they have requirements for coaches.
Like certifications and stuff?
Yeah, background checks, safe sport training, which is super important for athlete safety, coaching courses like Impacty. It shows a level of professionalism.
Okay, so distinct roles. But how do we get them working together? It feels like communication has to be the key, right?
You nailed it, that comprehensive guide we looked at. It calls open, transparent communication the bedrock. Foundational.
And it's not just on the parents to reach out.
No, not at all. It's a two-way street. Coaches can be proactive, send out updates on team stuff, training progress, upcoming games or tournaments.
Like newsletters or maybe a team app.
Yeah, exactly. Keep parents informed. It prevents a lot of guesswork and potential frustration down the line.
As a parent, I definitely appreciate that heads up.
For sure. And that same guide also talked about individual conferences, coach and parents meeting one-on-one.
For more personalized feedback.
Right. A dedicated time to discuss your child's progress, address specific concerns privately, and Dr. Cannell adds another layer. Parents need to really listen to the coach and trust the process.
Trust the process. That can be hard sometimes, can it, if you're not seeing instant results?
It really can. But approaching the coach with an open mind, wanting to understand their perspective, that helps build that mutual respect.
Which brings us neatly to setting expectations. It's not just about winning the next match, is it?
Not at all. And the guide suggests coaches should actually educate parents about, like, the long game in volleyball development. Meaning, progress takes time. It's not always a straight lineup. Patience is key. You got to see the long-term benefits.
Okay, manage expectations about how quickly skills develop.
Exactly. And Dr. Cannell brings in that broader view. Youth sports should build character, be fun, teach respect. It's bigger than the scoreboard.
So parents should try and keep that bigger picture in mind, even during a tense game.
Definitely helps. Shift the focus from just the score to the child's overall growth.
Makes sense.
And the team environment itself sets expectations too. The guide mentions having clear standards for how teammates treat each other. Respectful, supportive.
That contributes to the positive vibe. If you're a player, knowing the ground rules for behavior helps.
Absolutely. Creates unity.
Okay, so clear roles, Good communication, managed expectations, but still, sometimes, issues pop up, conflicts happen.
It's inevitable sometimes, yeah.
So how should parents and coaches handle those moments? What's the best way forward?
Well, the comprehensive guide really pushes for collaborative problem solving.
Meaning work together on it.
Exactly. If a concern comes up, playing time maybe, or a coaching technique, the goal should be a productive conversation, not an argument.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True. But it starts with active listening. Both sides really trying to hear the other's point of view. Empathy is huge.
Right.
Trying to understand why the other person feels that way.
So listen first, try to understand, then talk solutions.
Pretty much. The coach might even need to act as a sort of mediator sometimes. And the guide stresses professionalism. Keep it focused on solutions, not blame. The aim is always what's best for the athlete.
Right. Keep the player front and center.
Always. And, there are formal channels, too, for bigger issues, like GJNC has an appeals committee for officiating decisions.
Okay.
And some regions, like ERVA, have things like a purple card system for spectator misconduct. It involves warnings informing the coach.
So there are official routes if needed.
They're there as a backstop. But ideally, direct communication, that collaborative approach, that should handle most things.
Yeah, hopefully. So let's tie this back to the main goal, creating that really positive environment for the athletes. What are the core pieces of that puzzle?
I think the absolute number one thing for everyone involved is remembering the priority, the athlete's development and their enjoyment. It's got to be fun, too.
Finding that balance between competing hard and still loving the game.
Exactly. The guide talks about that balance.
Yeah.
And the coach's role is massive here, creating a supportive, encouraging space where kids feel okay making mistakes, That's how they learn.
We're constantly worried about getting yelled at.
Right. And this focus on development, on continuous improvement, that comes through in materials from places like the Canadian Elite Academy, too. It's about the journey of getting better.
Not just the win-loss record.
And coaches need to be role models. That's something Dr. Cannell and the guide both emphasize, showing good values, work ethic, sportsmanship.
Kids pick up on that stuff, don't they?
Absolutely. They watch the adults. So how coaches and parents act sets a huge example.
Which leads us right into parental conduct. What does good sportsmanship actually look like from the stands?
Dr. Cannell is very clear here. Positive voices only. Supportive. He says booing is absolutely unacceptable towards anyone, officials, opponents, your own team.
Wow, he's direct.
He is. He even mentions a ref removing spectators for being disrespectful. The message for parents is basically, act how you want your kid to act.
So cheer for good plays.
Yeah, enthusiastically.
Huh?
And he even suggests clapping for good plays by the other team. That teaches real sportsmanship.
That's a great point. What else?
Stay calm, respect opponents, respect officials.
Yeah.
And definitely, absolutely do not coach from the stands. Keep coming back to that one.
It seems crucial. And that quote you mentioned from Dr. Cannell's mother.
Oh, yeah. If you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. Simple, but powerful, right?
So true. It really just means keeping the focus positive and supportive.
Exactly. Your positive energy as a parent, it makes a difference.
Okay. We also need to touch briefly on the ethical side, safe sport and things like that.
Yeah, super important. We mentioned safe sport training requirements for coaches through USAV. And similar things exist in Canada via the Coaching Association of Canada.
It's about protecting the athletes.
Absolutely. There's a universal code of conduct, a duty to report maltreatment, and guidelines emphasize open and observable environments, trying to avoid situations where an adult is alone with a single child.
Transparency helps safety.
Definitely. And there are clear prohibitions against inappropriate conduct, emotional abuse, verbal abuse by coaches. That stuff is taken very seriously.
Good. It needs to be. So wrapping this all up then, it sounds like making this parent-coach relationship work well comes down to a few core ideas.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, it really hinges on clear communication, first off.
Open channels.
Then mutual respect for those distinct roles we talked about. Parents, parent, coaches, coach.
Right. Understanding the boundaries.
Setting realistic expectations, remembering it's a developmental process. Patience. And always keeping the athletes' positive growth, their well-being, and just their enjoyment of volleyball right at the center of everything.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Okay, so for everyone listening, parents, coaches, maybe think about this. What's one small thing, just one step you could take maybe this week to strengthen that communication line?
Yeah, maybe as a parent, it's just sending a quick positive email to the coach. Or as a coach, maybe setting up that team newsletter you've been meaning to start.
Small steps can make a big difference.
Definitely. And maybe just reflect on how understanding and respecting everyone's different roles can actually make the whole youth volleyball experience more enjoyable and, frankly, more successful for everybody involved.
Some really good food for thought there. If you want to dig deeper, you can always check out resources from organizations like USAV or Volleyball Canada.
Yeah, and looking into concepts like long-term athlete development, LTAD, that gives you a bigger framework for how athletes grow in a sport over time. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Definitely worth exploring. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.